My name's Mikaela Lawre, and I work with the Commonwealth Scientific Industrial Research Organisation, or referred to CSIRO, throughout this presentation. So CSIRO is a trusted organisation that undertakes research of fundamental importance in Australia. The research produces data that CSIRO manages over the long term, enabling reuse as inputs to new research. Our RDA adoption story was to certify our institutional repository, the Data Access Portal, or the DAP as we call it, as a trusted data repository with the Core Trust seal. Our repository infrastructure and software is developed and maintained by our Information Technology Department in-house, and it has been in production since 2012. The DAP ranges from large data from telescopes to small data in the kilobytes, and it covers a wide range of scientific disciplines of our CSIRO staff. The project was supported by the Australian National Data Service, or now called the Australian Research Data Commons, and they're a member of the RDA, and their initiative for the Australian research community for data-intensive infrastructure, platform skills and high-quality data collections. The project investigated the potential for the DAP to provide trustworthy access to significant data assets, and in addition we investigated the potential to host data owned by third parties with whom we collaborate. And we adopted the output from the repository audit and certification catalogue from the RDA WDS Certification of Digital Repositories Interest Group. So there were 4 phases of our certification process. So understanding the certification process, such as the requirement for public documentation as evidence and the 16 requirements to be addressed in the application. We then gathered our internal documentation and sought advice from staff within the Information Technology Department and other areas of CSIRO. We brought together our internal documentation by developing preservation and collection development principles to meet the public evidence requirements of the certification process. And addressing the 16 requirements in the application was done throughout the project, but we did a final tidy up and links to the evidence before adding the content into the Core Trust Seal submissions system. It took about 8 months to complete the application. However, the data seal of approval, which we were originally looking at, closed during the project, and then we submitted our application to the new certification organisation, the Core Trust Seal, in February 2018. After addressing the reviewers' feedback, the DAP received certification in October 2018. So we had 2 data librarians working about full-time on the project, and we also had a range of staff that we drew on throughout the project. So the DAP developers and infrastructure team who store the data for the DAP, IT operations staff about business continuity plans, and for the second part of the project around hosting third-party data, our legal department helped develop policies and procedures. And we also engaged with some of our researchers and their external collaborators to test those procedures. Why was hosting external data part of our project? We'd had interest from researchers in investigating using the Data Access Portal to bring together significant data from a range of organisations for the benefit of industry, policy and research. So gaining certification of the DAP as a trusted data repository would provide an added incentive in that area. And as an institutional repository, we needed to develop policies and processes for hosting third-party data. So as our legal counsel defined the scope for accepting data within our collection development principles, and she also developed an agreement outlining the terms and conditions and the obligations of CSIRO and the third party in hosting the data in the DAP. Adopting the RDA output provided the opportunity to assess the DAP's policies and processes against an international common catalogue of requirements. We identified our repository had many areas of strength, and for future planning, we identified that our disaster recovery process needs further work. Developing the procedures to host third-party data had immediate benefits with helping researchers address funder needs. And also we had researcher feedback about the value of certification when they discuss their software that's available through the DAP with their clients. And it's been a fantastic professional development opportunity. And I've just started as a reviewer with the Core Trust Seal, so increasing my knowledge of the many ways repositories work. Also, the ARDC has developed a community of practice in Australia to encourage other repositories to get certified. So lessons learned. So using available resources to developing understanding of requirements. So we looked at other applications, webinars on the Core Trust Seal site and professional networks. And applying for the Core Trust Seal management tool early is a good practice as you get to understand the end process earlier. Drawing on expertise within CSIRO and finding the business continuity plan was already available meant that we didn't have to reinvent documentation. And having procedures for hosting third-party data led to a greater understanding of the risk management and legal framework for depositing data in the repository. And it provided confirmation that our policies and processes are aligned with good practice. So in 2022, we'll be recertifying with the Core Trust Seal, and there was one area where we didn't have full implementation, and that will be the disaster recovery plan. Another area that we've looked at from the data versioning working group is implementing their recommendation to remove metadata versioning. We're also investigating metrics from the Fair's Fair project, from the Fair Data Maturity Model Working Group, and also investigating using the DAP as an instrument register from the Persistent Identification of Instruments Working Group. And that was it. Thank you. And I'd just like to acknowledge the staff in CSIRO who are involved in the project. Thank you.